God is gonna see you through. God is gonna see you through. Through the flood, through the fire, through your storms and through your trials, God is gonna see you through.
Good afternoon. How are you doing? I'm excited because we've been talking about setting specific goals for your life in the area of finances. But before we get started, I'd like to read a scripture. It's located in Proverbs chapter 23, looking at verse 12, and it says, "Apply your heart to discipline and your ears to words of understanding." And that's exactly, if you've been following the programs, that's exactly what you're doing. You are developing a different and totally, completely different mindset towards finances, towards your future, towards a vision for your money. And as I said, we've been talking about specific goals, and we're going to be talking a little bit more about that today. But you know, you have to develop discipline. And the way that you do that is by gaining knowledge. So what we've done in these programs these past few weeks, we have given you knowledge. Now it's up to you whether you apply that knowledge or not, or whether you go back to your old ways. Sometimes we can hear something and we get real excited about it, but then it kind of goes by the wayside and we don't really do it, and we find ourselves in the same situation, whether it's finances or other things in life. So I just a word of knowledge and a word of wisdom to you. Take what we have learned in these past few weeks, take what you have learned and apply it in your life. And if you do, it will make all the difference in the world in how you're able to conduct your finances. But anyway, we've been talking about specific goals, and I'm just going to kind of go back a little bit here in the book. And if you would like the book, you can just call us at the office and come by and pick up one of the books, okay? But anyway, specific goals. That's what we're trying to set. But the very first thing that we need to do is to pray to God to help you achieve your goal. See, without God in the center of what we're doing in life, we will not make it, okay? I mean, we'll fumble through, as they say in life, but it doesn't mean that we will have the quality of life that we should have and that God wants for you and I, if we don't keep him in the center. So, second of all, is to pay off past and current debts. We kind of looked into that and talked about that. Next one is be frugal in the present. If you haven't been frugal in the past, now let's do it in the present. And in other words, being frugal is not being cheap, but being frugal is being very picky about where you let your money go. So being frugal with your money. The fourth thing is to save for the future. Save your money for the future. Remember, we talked about rainy days. We're going to have rainy days, but at least if we put some money back when those rainy days do come, we've got money for them. Number 5, plan a course of action to achieve your goal. In other words, you may plan for a lot of things. You plan for vacations, you plan to have people over for dinner, you plan to your life of when you're going to go to the grocery store or whatever, but plan a course of action for your goals, your long-distance goals, your short-distance goals, and make sure that you have your ducks, as they say, ducks in a row for your finances. Next is to cut up your credit cards except for one. We talked about that. If you'll go back and watch, if this is the first time you're watching the program, then you can go back on YouTube see the other programs and understand, because we really kind of dissected that particular one very closely. So cut up your credit cards except for one. Use credit sparingly and wisely. In other words, just because you have the ability to spend money and buy things doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do that. So, use your credit very sparingly and very wisely. Next, stop compulsive buying, because manufacturers, stores, design a store, set up a store to cause you to want to do compulsive buying. If you go into some of the grocery stores, you see they have certain items that are right there in the front. And all you have to do is pick it up, put it into the basket. It's real easy. And so sometimes just because it's eye appealing doesn't necessarily mean that you should get it. So, stop compulsive buying. Next was to shop smart, buy smart, and be bold. Well, I think we talked about that in the last program. Now, do comparative shopping. Well, what do you mean by comparative shopping? In other words, get your grocery ads out. And you make comparisons with you at the grocery store. I think I shared with you last week, I bought some blueberries. As a matter of fact, I finally made that blueberry pie. But I bought blueberries. They were at one store, they were $2.99 a pint. Another store, I could get 2 pints for $3. So I only paid a penny for an extra pint, because it takes 2 pints to make a fresh blueberry pie. So, that was called comparative shopping. I looked at the grocery ads. I saw what they had on sale. Just this past week, they had strawberries on sale. One store had strawberries for $1.19 for 16 ounces. The rest of the stores were $2.98. Well, where do you think I went? To the one that was $1.19. And the strawberries were great. Beautiful red strawberries. So they were gorgeous. So do comparative shopping. Now, we're going to start with this. Evaluate your home and your living expenses. Evaluate. In other words, look at your electric bill. Look at your water bill. Look at your telephone bill and some of the other bills that you may have, and see, where could I cut some of this back? Let's just take your electric bill for one. Now, I'm going to give you a few little tips on that. After you have your appliances, for instance, after you make toast, unplug that toaster, because believe it or not, just because the toaster is not in use, it's still using electricity. So any major appliance that you have, that is the small appliances, because your smaller appliances take more electricity. They take more current, and that's why whenever your house is set up, you have to balance out where you plug in different things like that, simply for the fact you could blow a breaker. So those things are very, very powerful. So when you get through with them, that's the little appliances like a toaster, a coffee pot. Be sure and unplug them, simply for the fact that it uses extra electricity. When you go out of a room, turn the light off. Change out the light bulbs to LED bulbs all through your house. It can make such a difference. So we're talking, we're basically talking about evaluating our living expenses at home. How can we kind of cut down on those expenses? Same thing with your water. Make sure that you don't have any leaky faucets. A leaky faucet that keeps dripping and dripping and dripping, believe it or not, it will raise your water bill. But on top of that, because water bills also have the sewerage bill and all of that involved in it, it raises those automatically. So make sure that your appliances, your water appliances, does not have any leaks in it, simply for the fact it can cost you extra amount of money. Make sure if you water your lawn, that makes sure that that hose is turned off. A lot of times people leave their hoses on. Either they will flood their yard or flood their flower bed or whatever they're doing, or if you leave it on and it's stopped right there, it will still, that water will still leak around and you'll still use more water. So these are just little bitty tips. These are little bitty things that will help you out when it comes to your living expenses at home. And one of the biggest expenses that we have in evaluating our home is our food. Now, you talk about making things eye appealing. I mean, these stores make them very eye appealing. You know, they give you an advertisement of steaks, say, being $5 a pound. And whenever what you have a tendency to do, well, maybe I had better stock up. And you buy more than you need. And maybe sometimes you don't take those things out of your freezer and begin to move them around so that you are eating the current meats. This is another thing, is your freezer. And that kind of goes back to where we were talking about the home. Your freezer, it's very important that you have appliances that are less than 10 years of age. Simply because some of the older refrigerators and the older freezers, what they have, they do not have the energy efficiency that some of the newer ones have. Well, now, are you telling me I need to buy a new refrigerator or a new freezer? I'm saying this: save for a new refrigerator, save for a new freezer, and then you can buy yourself an energy effective freezer. I bought a new television the other day, and it was a brand new TV. And according to the energy effect, my television for one whole year will only use $19 electricity. Wow, $19 for the whole year. I can have that television on. And the same thing applies to appliances. It applies to your refrigerator, it applies to your stove, it applies, to your dishwasher. All of these things, and your freezers, it all applies to those. So you need to start thinking in that direction, because if you can begin to save, say for instance on your electric bill, then you can eventually begin to buy yourself something. But you can save on food. We go back to the point where I said about comparative shopping on your food. Simply for the fact that as you look at the grocery ads and you go in and you look at the meats or you look at the canned goods or whatever, you can save a lot of money. One of the best ways to save money on your groceries is two things. One, make out your menu for the week. And the second thing is to, make out your menu. And the second thing is make a list and stick by it. If I could bang that into your head, make a list and stick by it. Don't go off of your list. Make sure before you leave the house, another thing, make sure that you're full, not hungry when you go shopping, okay? Because you want to buy everything your little eyes can see. So make sure that you're not hungry when you go to the grocery store. Now, that didn't cost you anything at all for me to tell you that, all right? So make out your list, make the list thorough, and stick to your list. then you're going to be able to save some money. Be selective about what you buy. Don't just buy anything and go down the grocery. Now, I'm going to tell you something. Don't you tell Pastor I'm telling you this, all right? Okay. I cannot let him go to the grocery store at all. Because if he goes to the grocery store, he goes down and it's cookies, it's candy, it's whatever. Now, I did send him to the grocery store one time, but I have learned since then. I sent him simply to get a gallon of milk. Simply a gallon of milk. I told him, 2%, honey, 2%, gallon of milk. I sent him to the store to get that. He came home with 2 bags full of groceries and no milk. Well, I can tell you right now, that was the last time I asked him to go to the grocery store. So I just want to say that the person that goes to the grocery store should be the one that's the smart shopper, okay? And so because he, whatever he sees, he throws into the basket. Now, please, don't tell him I told you about this, okay? Don't tell him about that. But anyway, that's one of the ways that you can save when it comes to your living expenses, your home expenses. Now, next, don't borrow money you can't pay back. Number one, you'll lose your testimony. Okay? Don't borrow money that you can't pay back, because you will get the reputation of being someone that's not honest. If you tell somebody you're going to do something, then do it. If you're going to borrow money from someone, make sure that you know that you're going to be able to pay that person back. Don't plan on money that you think is coming in. You plan on money that you know is coming in. Many a times I've talked to people that have been in debt, and they talk big figures. Well, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, especially people that are in business for themselves. I've got this, and I've got that. You don't have anything until it's in the bag, until you got the money. So don't go with that kind of mentality at all. So don't borrow money that you know you can't pay back, because you definitely will lose your testimony. You will lose the people thinking that you're dishonest, and they'll never loan you anything again, simply for the fact, why? Because you didn't pay them back the first time. So mentally, do not borrow money that you know that you can't pay back. All right, next. Don't write checks when the money isn't in the bank. Wow. So many times people have written checks, and 2 things. They know the money isn't in the bank, and they're really not sure whether that money is going to get into the bank. They don't know. And so they write checks, bad checks. Then when those checks bounce, then you've got this large fee that you have to pay for a bounced check, and you are in the hole. I know someone that borrowed, I don't know how much money it was, but they borrowed some money out of the bank. In other words, they wrote bad checks, wrote 4 bad checks. And at the end of the time, the bank charged them $100. $100. $100 thrown down the drain just because a bad check was written. I say to you today, don't write a bad check. Don't write a check if you don't know that that money is into the bank. First of all, it's not honest. You know the money's not in the bank. You know the check's not good. And so, therefore, please, as a testimony as a Christian, do not write a bad check or write a check when you know the money isn't in the bank. Next, make a budget, excuse me, make a budget and live by it. Very simple. This is the way that you can specifically set your goals. We're using these tools in order for you to set goals to be debt-free somewhere down the line. And that's the long-term goal that you're going for, to be totally and completely out of debt. You know, people that are in debt, they go to bed thinking about it, they wake up in the morning thinking about it, it begins to possess them. You don't want to live like that. You know, when I think about a lot of people that are so in debt that they are miserable simply because they don't know how to handle their money. I praise God that you are seeking help or knowledge or wisdom in regards to how to handle your money and make the changes in your life. But one of the ways of making the change is by having a budget. Not only having a budget, but living by the budget. And that's what we have to do. We can have a beautiful budget written out and have everything just so. But if we don't live by it, then it's to no avail. And we're never going to get out of debt unless, number one, you don't live above your means, but you live below your means. That's how you save money. Just that simple fact. You don't live above your means, but you live below your means. When you live below your means, then you're going to have extra money to put away for your future. So, if you have $4,000 coming in a month, and in a month's time your bills are $3,800, you have an extra $200 that you can put away for your future. But now if you make $4,000 a month and your budget is $4,200 a month, it's not going to work. It just isn't going to work, and you've got to cut. So some of these things that I've shared with you, you're going to be able to cut in those particular areas. So make a budget and live by it. Budget out what you're doing. And then when you make your budget out, look at it and see, where could I kind of cut down on this a little bit? Now, if you get my workbook, we have the workbook in the bookstore. If you get the workbook, you have a complete sheet that shows you the percentage of what you should put away for this particular thing. So in that workbook, it kind of helps you to set up a budget. And you would be shocked and surprised how much money that just disappears. You don't even know where in the world it went. But you made all of this money, and you say, where in the world did it go? It's simply for the fact that you did a lot of these things that you weren't supposed to do, and now it's caught up with you. But praise God, you are going to make changes in your life. I speak that into you right now. Make changes in your life, and you will sleep better. You'll have money in your pocket. You will be able to get some of the things that you want to do because you have lived by a budget, you've watched your money, and you've taken care of it. So make a budget and live by it. The next thing you're to do is to pay your bills on time. Pay your bills on time. One of the greatest things that you have in your life, believe it or not, is your credit. Your credit is important. Your credit speaks of your life. When somebody has bad credit, it immediately tells another person, they don't know how to handle their money. They've been slothful with their money. They don't know how to take care of it. They don't know how to appropriate their money. So pay your bills on time. If the bills are due at the first of the month, and they give you some companies will give you from the 1st to the 10th. If you pay within that period of time, the 1st and the 10th, then you're considered you've paid your bills on time. So make sure that you pay your bills on time. Know when they're due and pay them on time, because it'll give you a good credit report. And if you want to go buy a house or buy a car or something like that, they check your credit. And if your credit is good, you're able to purchase those things. So, let that be indelible on your mind. Pay your bills on time. The next thing I want to talk to you about is avoid get-rich schemes. Avoid get-rich schemes. When we're in debt, we want to make some fast money. And there's always fast talkers out there that will share with you. They're the one that's going to really make the money, but they're going to share with you how you can make all of this money. And they're get-rich schemes. My mother told me a long time ago, she said, the steady drop in the bucket is what's going to get it. In other words, steady money coming in, steady discipline in your life, steady consistency in your life, and that's the drop in the bucket that's going to begin to fill the bucket up. And that simply means that live below your means, not above your means. You got a little bit of money left over. You got a little bit of money to take care of circumstances and situations that may arise. And so, therefore, you don't need to get involved in get-rich schemes. I've seen so many people get involved in those things and really put out a lot. They have even borrowed money. They have even borrowed money in order to get involved in a get-rich scheme, and they were scammed themselves. That's really disheartening. That really is disheartening. Now, what you've done is that you've borrowed money that you really in your budget, that it's going to be hard to pay that back, and then on top of that, you've lost it totally and completely. Next thing is never borrow money to invest, okay? And I think I just kind of put that thing together. Never borrow money to invest. Always have money that you have saved. If you make a decision to make an investment in anything, I don't care what it is, whether it's the stock market, whether you decide to do a CD, whether you decide to go in on an LLC or a corporation with somebody, whatever the case may be, don't borrow money to invest, because in any kind of business that you begin to do or set up, there's always that possibility that it's not going to work. Always that possibility it's not going to work. You don't go into it thinking that it isn't going to work. You go into it, and I say this, if any of you are out there that make a decision that they want to go into a business or something like that, then let me say this, you just make sure that if you lose it, it's not going to hurt your family. It isn't going to hurt your family. Well, it's been great. I've kind of cut the program to a half an hour, because some people say they like to watch it at lunchtime and they only have a half an hour for lunch. And so I just want to kind of wrap this up and just tell you that I really appreciate you watching the program. I appreciate some of the comments that I have gotten, that it has really helped them, and it's just made a turnaround in some of your lives. And you know what? That's what it's all about. That's the plan. God placed this within my heart, And this is part of the plan that God has for my life. So come on and just make sure that you kind of track some of these things and do some of these things, because I'm going to tell you this, God is going to see you through.
Through the flood, through the fire, through your storms and through your trials, God is going to see you through. Oh, God is going to see you through somehow, some way. Oh, God is going to see you through.